Daniel slid the papers beside my plate just as I reached for my iced tea. The corner of the stack touched the pickle spear I hadn't eaten. A wet green mark climbed into the bottom margin. "Just sign where I flagged it," he said. "It's a tax formality." Across the table, his mother smiled over her coffee. "Don't embarrass him by making this into an interrogation, Lena." I looked at Daniel. He gave me the small, patient nod he used when he wanted me to believe I was the only tense person in the room. The first 3 pages were dense with language about transfers, liability, and consideration. On page 4, my appetite disappeared. I read the paragraph twice. It said I was conveying all my interest in our house to Glass House Holdings, LLC. The attached schedule named Evelyn Mercer as the controlling member. Daniel owned the rest. My name appeared once, under grantor. They were still waiting for my signature. I set the pages flat between the ketchup bottle and the napkin dispenser. "Why does your mother need to control my house?" Daniel's eyes flicked toward Evelyn before returning to me. That was the answer before either of them spoke. "It's not control," he said. "Not the way you're making it sound." I'm reading the words on the page. Legal language always sounds dramatic. Evelyn lifted one shoulder. She had dressed for lunch as if someone might photograph it. Navy jacket, gold earrings, lipstick that had survived both coffee and a bacon cheeseburger. An LLC has to have a managing member. My credit is better right now, so it makes sense for that to be me. Your credit has nothing to do with my property unless you're borrowing against it. Daniel leaned back. The vinyl booth sighed beneath him. "We knew you'd hear loan and stop listening." My fingers went cold around the paper. There's a loan. There might be a line of credit, later. For how much? We're not at that stage. Evelyn placed both hands around her coffee cup. Daniel's company has an opportunity, a real one. People who build things sometimes have to move before every single condition is perfect. And people who own houses generally know when they're being used as collateral. A waitress paused at our table with the coffee pot raised. She looked from Evelyn to Daniel to me, read the room with professional speed, and moved on without asking. Daniel lowered his voice. "Can we not do this here? You brought a deed to a diner. It's not a deed." I turned the first page toward him and tapped the title. It says Property Transfer Agreement. That's different. How? He opened his mouth. Evelyn answered for him. The distinction doesn't matter. The house would stay in the family. There it was. Not our family. The family. I had bought the brick house on Merritt Street 3 years before I married Daniel. At closing, my hand had shaken so badly the title agent offered me a second pen. The furnace was 12 years old. The upstairs bathroom leaned slightly toward the tub. The detached garage had one working outlet and a door that swelled every August. I had wanted it anyway. Daniel had arrived later with 2 suitcases, 6 clamps, and the kind of confidence that made damaged things seem eager to be fixed. Now he reached for my hand. I moved it to my lap. "Lena, listen to me. The company has a chance to take on the Bellevue Hotel job. Custom desks, wall panels, the lobby bar. It's the biggest contract Marcus and I have ever been offered. We need material money up front. So this is about the garage business. It's about us. Then why am I not in the LLC?" Silence settled over the table. Silverware struck plates in the next booth. Someone near the register laughed too loudly. Daniel rubbed his thumb along his wedding ring. Evelyn sighed. "Because you already own the house." I waited. She seemed annoyed that I needed more. "The structure has to balance," she said. "Daniel needs a stake and the lender needs stability. You get 51%, temporarily." "Where does it say temporary?" Daniel pulled the stack toward himself. "We can have that added. You told me it was a tax formality. It is partly about taxes." "What part?" His mouth tightened. Daniel had a beautiful mouth, which was useful when he was apologizing and dangerous when he wasn't. "You're cross-examining every sentence." "I'm trying to find the sentence that's true." Evelyn looked out the window. This is exactly what I warned you about. Daniel's head snapped toward her. Mom. What? She said. You said she'd get scared. He closed his eyes for half a second. I heard the humming drink cooler behind the counter. I heard a spoon turn inside a mug. I heard Daniel's words from the night before, when he had asked whether I could get away for lunch because his mother wanted to treat us. You said she'd get scared. I gathered the pages and slid them into my tote. Daniel caught the strap. Those are my copies. They have my name and my address on them. Lena. I looked down at his hand until he released it. Evelyn dabbed the corner of her mouth with a napkin. Walking out doesn't solve anything. I'm not trying to solve it before the check comes. I dropped $20 beside my plate. Daniel had ordered the papers. He could pay for lunch. Outside, heat rose from the parking lot in soft, watery sheets. I was halfway to my car when Daniel called my name. He caught up beside the cart return, his tie loosened and his face flushed. He had worn a tie for me. That detail hurt worse than it should have. You're acting like we tried to trick you. I unlocked my car but didn't open the door. Did you tell your mother I would sign? I told her you'd understand once we explained. You didn't explain. You put little yellow flags beside signature lines. It was supposed to be simple. For whom? He glanced toward the diner. Evelyn stood inside near the register, watching through the glass. Daniel moved closer. Cedar dust clung to the seam of his cuff. Even dressed up, he carried the garage with him. The hotel contract gets us out of survival mode, he said. No more juggling suppliers. No more asking if we can wait a week to pay the card. I can finally contribute the way you're always implying I don't. I have never said that. You don't have to. You keep spreadsheets for groceries. I keep spreadsheets for everything. Exactly. A pickup backed out 2 rows over. Daniel put a hand lightly against my elbow, guiding me from its path. The gesture was automatic, tender, and infuriating. How much? I asked. He looked away. How much were you planning to borrow against the house? $150. Maybe less. I laughed once because the alternative was making a sound I could not take back. There's enough equity, he said quickly. The payments from the hotel job would cover it. Marcus has run the projections. Does Marcus know the LLC belongs to you and your mother? He knows we're restructuring. That wasn't my question. Daniel shoved both hands into his pockets. He doesn't need every domestic detail. Ownership isn't a domestic detail. Could you stop talking like you're at work? At work, I purchased medical equipment for a hospital network. People called me difficult when I asked why 2 numbers didn't match, then called me indispensable when the mismatch turned out to be 6 figures. Daniel used to love that about me. On our 3rd date, I sent back a bottle of wine because the label did not match the menu. He had grinned and said, "Remind me never to lie to you." I opened my car door. "We'll talk at home," he said. "We just talked." "No, you reacted. There's a difference." I sat behind the wheel and pulled the door shut between us. The house on Merritt Street looked exactly as it had that morning. 2 boxwoods needed trimming. A grocery circular stuck out of the mailbox. Daniel's work van filled the left side of the driveway, though he had ridden to lunch with Evelyn. Inside the front door, the green glass bowl waited on the narrow oak table. I had bought it the week I moved in, when the house contained a mattress, a folding chair, and 3 paint cans the previous owner had left in the basement. The bowl had cost $8 at an estate sale. A bubble was trapped in the thick green rim, and sunlight passing through it left a wavering circle on the wall. My brass key landed inside with a clean little note. Daniel's key was not there. Usually it was. He emptied his pockets the moment he came home, wallet on the table, loose screws in the bowl, folded receipts under anything heavy enough to keep them from escaping. I could track his week by what accumulated around his key. I carried the transfer papers to the dining room and spread them across the table. Page 5 authorized the LLC to seek financing. Page 6 described the property, including the detached garage. Page 7 contained a space for notarization. A pink flag marked that one too. I called the number printed at the top of the first page. A receptionist answered with the name of a document preparation service in a strip mall 15 miles away. "I'm calling about a property transfer packet," I said. "Glass House Holdings." After 2 clicks and a stretch of hold music, she returned, sounding more cautious. "You'd need to speak with the client who ordered it." "Which client?" "I'm not able to disclose that." "My name is on the document." "I understand. Was an appointment made for notarization today?" Another pause. "You'll need to speak with the client." I thanked her and hung up. The refrigerator clicked off. Somewhere beyond the kitchen, a power saw whined to life in the garage. I walked across the back patio. Through the open garage door, Marcus stood at the long assembly table, guiding a board through the saw, while sawdust streamed into the afternoon light. He was broad, bald, and gentle with tools, in a way he rarely managed with people. He shut off the saw when he saw me. "Hey, boss lady." He called me that because the garage belonged to me. Though recently it had begun to sound like a joke neither of us had agreed was funny. "Big lunch?" he asked. Apparently. The garage had changed one reasonable improvement at a time. First better wiring, then insulation, then dust collection. Shelves climbed 2 walls. Bundles of white oak occupied the place where my lawnmower once sat. A small refrigerator hummed beside the utility sink, stocked with sparkling water Evelyn bought because she said craftsmen needed to hydrate. "Where's Daniel?" Marcus asked. "With his mother." That explains the tie. "You know about the Bellevue job?" His face brightened. "They called this morning. We're shortlisted. Danny say something." "He said you ran projections for a $150,000 credit line." The brightness faltered, then returned in a more careful form. "We've talked about financing options." "Using this property?" Marcus picked up a rag and wiped clean hands. "That part's between you two." "Does the name Glass House Holdings mean anything to you?" He looked toward the open garage door, though there was no one behind me. "Daniel said you guys were setting up an asset company." "You thought I was part of it." His silence was brief, but it was enough. "I should get back to this," he said. "We have samples due Monday." I nodded and walked away before he could see how much his answer had cost me. Daniel came home at 6, carrying grocery store flowers and the smell of his mother's car, a powdery vanilla scent that clung to upholstery. He set the bouquet on the kitchen counter without finding a vase. "I told Mom to stay out of this tonight." "How generous. Can we start over?" "From which part?" He pulled out a chair. I remained standing. The papers were stacked in front of him with page 4 on top. Daniel looked at them, then at me. "I should have explained before lunch." "Yes." "And I shouldn't have let Mom push you." "Did you know what page 4 said?" He rubbed both palms over his thighs. I watched him consider several answers. That was new. Or maybe noticing it was new. "Yes," he said finally. I knew. The clock over the stove ticked through the space between us. "Why isn't my name in the company?" "Your debt-to-income ratio is already tied to the mortgage. Mom has the stronger borrower profile. The bank wants clean control. The bank wants her to be able to act without me. It wants decisions made efficiently. And you want the loan. I want the business to survive." I sat across from him. "Why did she tell you I'd get scared?" His expression changed. Not guilt exactly, weariness. "Because you do this," he said. "Do what?" "You freeze everything until you've analyzed it to death. You make risk the only thing that matters." "My house is the risk. Our house." The correction came softly. That softness opened something colder in me than shouting would have. I looked past him toward the front hall. Late sun shone through the green bowl and cast its warped circle against the wall. I remembered placing a newly cut brass key in Daniel's palm 6 years ago. He'd closed his fingers around it and kissed my knuckles. I had believed I was giving him a way in. "Do you think I should be allowed to own anything you can't use?" I asked. Daniel frowned. "What kind of question is that?" "One you can answer without your mother. I'm not doing this word game thing." It's not a game. You're making me choose between you and my business. No, I'm asking whether marrying you turned everything I had into something you were entitled to spend. He pushed back from the table. I came home to apologize. You came home with flowers. I'm trying, Lena. So try answering. He stood there, jaw working, eyes bright with anger he would later call frustration. Then he grabbed the papers. This contract could change our lives. It already did. He left the room. A minute later, the back door slammed and the garage lights came on. I stayed at the table until the flowers began to droop in their plastic sleeve. Before bed, I placed Daniel's brass key in the green bowl. I had found it on the bathroom counter beside his watch. It struck mine with a familiar chime. In the morning, his key was gone. Daniel was already in the garage. His coffee mug sat unrinsed in the sink, a tan ring cooling around the bottom. On the counter lay a note in his blocky handwriting. "Please don't make any calls until we talk tonight." I read it twice. Then I opened my laptop, found the automatic payment for the garage's separate electrical meter, and clicked cancel. A confirmation box appeared. "Are you sure?" The utility company had apparently developed more concern for Daniel's comfort than Daniel had shown for mine. I clicked yes. The payment wasn't due for 12 days. Nothing would be shut off. An email would go to the business address listed on the account, giving Daniel and Marcus plenty of time to replace my card with their own. This was not sabotage. It was a bill returning to the people who created it. At 9:15, Daniel texted me. "Did you cancel the shop electric?" I was at my desk reviewing bids for replacement infusion pumps. I turned my phone face down and finished checking a service agreement before replying. "Yes." The next payment is due on the 28th. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then returned. We need to discuss expenses before you make unilateral decisions. I stared at that long enough for the absurdity to become almost charming. "Agreed," I wrote. He called immediately. I let it go to voicemail. At lunch, I walked 2 buildings over to Human Resources and changed my direct deposit. Most of my pay would go into an account in my name, with enough left in our joint account to cover my share of the mortgage, insurance, and ordinary household bills. I had never hidden what I earned. Daniel knew my salary down to the after-tax dollar because I was the one who made our annual budget, and because, until that week, I had believed information made us partners. The woman at the HR desk handed me a confirmation slip. "Takes effect next cycle. Thank you." "New bank giving you a toaster?" "Something like that." She grinned. I folded the slip into my wallet and went back to work. Daniel was cooking when I got home. He cooked when he wanted the atmosphere to improve without having to discuss what had poisoned it. Garlic and butter filled the kitchen. 2 chicken breasts sizzled in a skillet, and the grocery store flowers from the night before had been trimmed and placed in the blue pitcher we usually used for lemonade. "Smells good," I said. He glanced over his shoulder, surprised I'd offered him that much. 20 minutes. I set my key in the green bowl. His was already there, nestled against a washer, 3 quarters and a tiny hex wrench. For half a second, the sight loosened something in my chest. Then Daniel said, "You humiliated me in front of Marcus." I took off my shoes. I asked him one question. "You made it sound like I was stealing the shop. You told him I was part of an asset company that doesn't include me." I said we were setting one up. We were. "No, you and your mother did." He turned the chicken too hard. Butter snapped onto the stove. The paperwork was a draft. It had a notary appointment. His spatula stopped. I leaned against the counter. The document service wouldn't tell me who booked it, but they did a very convincing impression of someone protecting an appointment. "Mom knows a mobile notary. She was going to see if he could meet us." "At the diner? If you were comfortable?" "She brought a notary to sit in the parking lot while she told me not to embarrass you?" Daniel turned off the burner. He wasn't in the parking lot. Where was he? His hesitation was small. "The coffee shop next door." I laughed. I couldn't help it. That is somehow worse. He was already in the area. Of course he was. "Can you stop?" The edge in his voice silenced me, which seemed to surprise both of us. He put down the spatula. I know how it looks. It looks organized. It was supposed to save time. You keep saying things that make it worse." He gripped the counter with both hands and bowed his head. The back of his neck had gone red above his collar. "We're behind," he said. "How far?" "Daniel, how far?" He opened a drawer, took out a pot holder, then put it back without using it. $43,000 to suppliers. Some of that isn't due yet. My stomach tightened. The business account. Low. How low? 7. 7,000? He looked at me. 700? "We have receivables coming in." I sat at the kitchen table. Daniel came across the room but stayed standing. "This is what I was trying to tell you. Bellevue changes the scale of everything. If you get it. We're the best shop on their list. That doesn't mean you can afford the job. That's what the line is for. The line you wanted secured by the house. By an asset with equity. Yes, that's how lending works." I watched his face while he said it. His fear was real. So was his impatience with me for not allowing his fear to make the decision. "When were you going to tell me you had $700? "When the contract was firm. So after I signed? After there was something useful to talk about." The chicken burned while we sat there. Eventually, Daniel scraped the blackest pieces into the trash and made grilled cheese. We ate without mentioning the company, his mother, or the fact that our dinner tasted faintly of smoke. On Thursday, I called Victor Hale, the commercial supply representative who had helped our hospital negotiate bulk pricing on shipping materials. 2 years earlier, at my request, he had extended his company's preferred small business rate to Mercer and Blythe Woodworks. No hospital money was involved, but the introduction was mine, and Victor sent me the renewal form every January. "I need you to remove me as the account contact," I told him. "No problem. Daniel or Marcus?" "Marcus." Victor tapped at his keyboard. "Done. Anything else?" "Please take my home address off delivery instructions." "That your garage?" "Not anymore." There was a brief, respectful pause. "I'll have them confirm the commercial address." Daniel called before Victor and I hung up. I declined it. That evening, he waited in the driveway beside my car. He had sawdust in his hair and a folded shipping notice in his hand. "Are you trying to shut us down?" I changed to contact. "You canceled our rate." "No, I removed myself. Victor said he'll keep the rate if Marcus provides a commercial delivery address. This is our commercial address. This is my home. It has been the shop for 5 years. Temporarily." Daniel flinched at the word. I hadn't planned it. That made it land harder. He crumpled the notice once, then smoothed it against his thigh. "So, that's your game." "I'm not playing a game. You're making everything I use conditional because I asked you for help. You tried to transfer the condition out from under me. I apologized. You apologized for how you did it." He stepped closer. "I'm scared, Lena. Is that what you want to hear? If we don't get Bellevue or another job that size, I may have to let Marcus go. I may lose the business. I built that place from nothing." I looked past him at the open garage. The white oak on the racks had cost more than my first car. The wiring had been paid from our joint account, so had the insulation. For 2 winters, I had gone to bed alone because he was finishing restaurant booths under heat lamps at midnight. I knew what he had built. I knew exactly what it had required from both of us. "I would have helped you," I said. "You still can." "I would have helped if you'd asked before your mother had paperwork drawn up to own my house." His face closed. "You keep saying my house." "Because on page 4, that's what it became." He walked into the garage and pulled the door down between us. Saturday morning, Evelyn called while I was cleaning the bathroom. "I'm at your front door," she said. "Why?" "It's Saturday." That was answer enough in Evelyn's world. I went downstairs. Through the glass, I could see her holding 2 canvas grocery bags. Her mouth had settled into a line. "My code doesn't work," she said when I opened the door. "I changed it." "I assumed that." She stepped forward. I did not move aside. "What's in the bags?" "Food. I thought I'd make my pot roast for tomorrow. Daniel needs a decent meal. He had grilled cheese Tuesday. Her eyebrows lifted. That explains his mood. Despite myself, I nearly smiled. Then she tried to step around me. I'm not hosting tomorrow, I said. We don't have to be formal. I'm not cooking, shopping, setting the table, or cleaning up. I just said I'd cook. You'll use 6 pans, serve at 4, and leave at 6:30. I did not realize you kept a stopwatch. I keep spreadsheets. The joke came out dry. Evelyn heard Daniel in it and softened for a moment. Lena, I know you're upset. You called a notary. He charged less if we booked in advance. That's your defense? My defense is that my son is drowning, and the person who promised to stand beside him is examining the temperature of the water. I held the door. He lied to me. He avoided a reaction he knew would come. That is a very polished definition of lying. Her fingers tightened around the grocery handles. You think I'm trying to take something from you. Page 4 was unusually clear. I own a paid-off condominium. I don't need your house. Then why do you need control of the LLC? Because I can qualify for financing, and because Daniel deserves one person in his life who doesn't treat belief in him like a clerical error. The words hit exactly where she aimed them. I stepped onto the porch and pulled the door shut behind me. Give me your key. Her expression barely changed. Excuse me? The spare. I'm having the keys checked. Yours sticks. My key works perfectly. Then this will be quick. She shifted both bags into one hand. Daniel gave it to me. The key belongs to the house, and the house belongs to you. Yes, Lena, we've all heard. She reached into her purse, separated the brass key from a crowded ring, and held it out. Before dropping it into my palm, she said, "A door can lock both ways." Then she returned to her car with the pot roast. Inside, I placed her key in the green bowl. Daniel's was gone again. That afternoon, he asked if I had really turned his mother away with groceries. I said yes. He called it cruel. I asked whether she had told him about giving back the key. He looked toward the bowl, and I saw that she had not. By Monday, we had learned to move around each other with astonishing efficiency. Daniel showered before I woke. I stayed late enough at work that he ate without me. At night, the house filled with the muffled machinery of his business, while I sat in the dining room and itemized 5 years of garage expenses, electrical upgrades, insulation, property tax increases after the permitted renovation, water, internet, insurance riders, the dust collector that Daniel had sworn would pay for itself. The total made me get up and walk around the room. At 11:20, the printer in my office woke by itself. It often did that when Daniel printed estimates from the garage. I heard the rollers catch, followed by 6 quick mechanical sighs. I went in to move his pages before they mixed with mine. The first sheet carried the logo of North Coast Commercial Lending. Beneath it was a preliminary application for Glass House Holdings, LLC. The second page listed Evelyn as managing member and Daniel as operations manager. The third described the Merritt Street house as property to be transferred before closing. The fourth requested verification of clear title. Then came photographs: the front of the house, the garage, the kitchen, my office. The picture had been taken from the doorway. My desk drawers were open. Mortgage statements, insurance papers, and the folder containing my original closing documents lay spread across the rug. In the edge of the photograph, reflected in the dark computer monitor, Evelyn held up her phone. Daniel came through the back door before I finished looking. "Did anything print?" he called. I carried the photograph into the kitchen. When he saw it, he stopped. "She was looking for the insurance declaration," he said. "You knew she came into my office. She needed documents for the preliminary file, with her spare key. You were at work." That is not an answer. It wasn't a secret search, Lena. She opened my desk. She took pictures of documents related to the property. My property. His face hardened. Our marriage. I set the photograph between us. You submitted a loan application before lunch. a preliminary application. You listed the LLC as the future owner, because that was the proposed structure. You didn't propose it to me, you reported it to a lender. Nothing could close without your signature. He said it as if the blank line on page 4 proved his innocence. I looked at the reflection of Evelyn in my dead computer screen, standing inside the room where I paid our bills, filed our taxes, and kept the first photograph Daniel and I had ever taken together. "You were counting on my signature," I said. Daniel looked tired rather than ashamed. "Yes," he said, "I was." The honesty should have helped. It didn't. I picked up the remaining pages from the printer and carried them into my office. Daniel followed. "What are you doing?" "Putting my papers away." "Those are company documents." They printed in my office. I locked the mortgage statements and closing file in the metal cabinet under my desk. The little key had lived for years in the ceramic cup beside my pens. I put it on my ring instead. Daniel stood in the doorway, occupying the same place Evelyn had occupied in the photograph. "Are you going to call the lender?" "Yes." "Don't. I'm not letting them process an application that says I agreed to transfer the property. It says the transfer is pending. It says Evelyn controls the borrower. She does on paper. Page 4 was paper 2. He dragged a hand down his face. "If you call them in the middle of the review, they may flag the whole company. I'm going to tell them the truth. You think truth is some neutral thing. It isn't. Not when you deliver it like a weapon." I closed the cabinet. "You applied for a loan against my house and sent them a photograph of my open desk." "I didn't take the photograph. You used it." He looked at the framed picture on my bookshelf. Daniel and I at a roadside apple stand, a month after we met. His arm was around me. I was laughing at something outside the frame. He took the photograph down, wiped dust from the glass with his sleeve, and returned it to the shelf. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said. "You just needed me to be easier to use." He left without answering. In the morning, I called North Coast Commercial Lending from my car in the hospital parking garage. The loan officer, Craig Donnelly, sounded alarmed in the precise, contained way people sound when a problem may become part of their permanent file. "I'm not accusing anyone of anything," I said. "I'm telling you I own the property individually. I have not agreed to transfer it to Glass House Holdings, and I do not authorize the use of my financial documents." "We haven't ordered title work," he said. "Good. The application is preliminary and contingent on verification. Then you should verify with me." He promised to place the file on hold and send written confirmation. I gave him my personal email address. At 10:40, Daniel texted, "You called them." At 10:42, Craig froze the file. At 10:45, "You got what you wanted." I did not answer because I had no idea what he thought I wanted. When I checked our joint account before leaving work, the balance was $1,184.63. The previous day, it had been $26,184.63. The transfer line showed $25,000 moved to Mercer and Blythe Woodworks. I called Daniel. He answered on the first ring. "Now you want to talk?" "Put the money back. That money is marital. It's our emergency fund. This is an emergency. You transferred it after I stopped the loan. I transferred money we both earned into the business that supports this household. The business has never supported this household. The silence on his end became dangerous. That's what you really think? I think the mortgage comes out of my paycheck. And you think the years I put into this place count for nothing. I think you just took $25,000 without asking me after telling me I was wrong to cancel a $200 payment. It's inventory. It'll come back when we finish the restaurant order. Put it back today." "I can't. I paid the lumber deposit." My hand tightened around the phone. "All of it?" "Most." "Send me every invoice." "You're not my auditor." "No. Auditors get access before the money disappears." He hung up. I spent that night at the dining room table with bank statements, mortgage records, tax returns, and the garage expense spreadsheet. Daniel came through twice for water. Neither time did he speak. His brass key hit the green bowl a little after midnight. Mine was in my pocket. The attorney's office occupied the second floor of a converted Victorian, wedged between a dentist and a funeral home. Paula Chen wore red glasses and had a jar of peppermints on her desk that no one appeared to eat. She read page 4 first. Did you sign anything? No. Did you give Daniel power of attorney? No. Did you ever add him to the deed? No. Then the house is still titled to you. That's the clean part. I waited for the unclean part. Paula turned to my mortgage statements. You've made payments during the marriage from joint income. He performed renovations. Some of the house's increase in value may be marital, depending on what can be attributed to market appreciation and what can be attributed to his labor or joint money. He used the garage without paying rent. That matters to negotiation. It doesn't erase his potential claim. He tried to put the entire house into an LLC controlled by his mother. And you stopped him. A judge may care about his conduct, particularly the transfer from the joint account, but this isn't a courtroom drama where one ugly document vaporizes every financial interest he might have. I don't want drama. I want my house. Paula leaned back. Can you afford to buy out any marital share he proves? I don't know. Can you qualify for a refinance on your salary? Probably. I've never carried that much alone. Could you sell? The word made the room tilt slightly. I bought that house before I met him. That wasn't my question. No. No, you can't sell, or no, you won't. I looked through the window at the funeral home's black awning rippling in the wind. I don't know yet. That's honest. She slid the peppermints toward me. Keep it that way. Anyone who promises you certainty this early is selling something. I took a peppermint even though I didn't want one. Paula explained that I could separate my income and protect future deposits, but I should not drain or hide marital funds. I could revoke Evelyn's access. I could give written notice that the garage's free commercial use would end, though Daniel's status as my spouse and the history of the arrangement meant I should not start tossing equipment onto the lawn. I could ask the court for temporary financial orders if I filed. If? I said. She removed her glasses. Are you here to save your property or end your marriage? I thought those were the same appointment. Sometimes. Not always. I left with an engagement agreement in my bag and the peppermint dissolving into something bitter at the back of my tongue. Evelyn's car was in my driveway when I got home. A white van marked Hollis Renovation Design stood behind it. The garage loft door was open, and a man with a laser measure was calling dimensions down to a woman holding a tablet. Evelyn stood on the patio pointing toward the roofline. What is this? I asked. The man lowered his laser. Daniel emerged from the garage. Mom wanted a rough estimate, that's all. For what? Evelyn smiled at the contractors as if I had asked about curtains. The apartment. There is no apartment. There may be later. No, there may not. Daniel came toward me. You don't have to do this in front of them. You brought them to my house. The woman with the tablet suddenly found the cracks in the patio. Fascinating. Evelyn folded her arms. A quote costs nothing. You entered after I took back your key. Daniel invited me. Of course he had. The reclaimed key in my bowl had been a gesture. Daniel could open the door whenever he chose. I looked at the contractors. I'm sorry you were called out. I own the property, and I have not authorized plans or work. The man nodded quickly. We'll close the file. You don't need to close anything, Evelyn said. Yes, he said, already packing the laser into its case. We do. The van left within 3 minutes. Evelyn watched it go. Was that satisfying? No. You've made your point. I don't think you've heard it. She turned to Daniel. Say something. He stood between us, saw both of us waiting, and chose the garage. I need to finish a glue-up. The door shut behind him. Evelyn's face changed. For the first time, she looked less like his commander than someone he had abandoned at the front. He's trying to save what he built, she said. He learned from you that saving something means taking someone else's. She picked up her purse from the patio chair. You have no idea what I gave him. I'm starting to. She stepped close enough that I smelled her vanilla perfume. If you force him to choose, he will resent you even if he stays. He already chose. That's why we're standing here. She left through the side gate without saying goodbye. That evening, I signed Paula's engagement agreement. The formal notice she sent 3 days later was calm enough to make Daniel furious. It revoked permission for Evelyn to enter the house or obtain property documents. It requested a full accounting of the $25,000 transfer. It stated that the garage's no-cost business use would end in 60 days and proposed that Mercer and Blythe either negotiate rent and utilities or move to commercial space. Daniel read it in the kitchen while I washed a coffee cup. You hired a lawyer? Yes. You gave us 60 days. The letter invites you to negotiate. Rent. To my wife. To the owner of your commercial space. He dropped the letter onto the counter. I installed half the electrical out there. Joint money paid the electrician. I did the insulation. The materials are on our credit card statements. So my labor is worthless? No, it's not worth my title. He stared at me. My attorney says I have an equitable claim. The cup slipped against the sink and struck the faucet. It didn't break. Your attorney? You hired one first. What else did your attorney say? That you can't evict me from the marital home just because the deed predates the marriage. That the increase in value may be partly mine. That your letter looks retaliatory. Did you tell them about page 4? I gave them everything. Did you tell them about the money? His gaze shifted. I'm filing, I said. The sentence left my mouth before I had tested it privately. Daniel went still. Outside, the dust collector started, probably on a timer Marcus had installed. Its low roar traveled through the kitchen floor. For divorce? He asked. I nodded. He sat at the table, not gracefully. The chair caught his weight. You're ending 6 years over paperwork you didn't sign. I'm ending 6 years because you still think the signature is the part that matters. He looked toward the front hall. The green bowl held his key, Evelyn's return spare, and a screw with blue paint on its threads. I thought you'd be angry, he said. I didn't think you'd leave. I'm not leaving. He gave a short, wrecked laugh. Right, because it's your house. I filed the following Monday. After that, the rooms became territories, without anyone naming them. Daniel slept in the guest room and used the downstairs shower. I moved my financial files to a locking cabinet at work. Groceries separated themselves on refrigerator shelves. He bought expensive coffee and cheap bread. I bought the yogurt he hated and stopped pretending I liked mustard. Marcus avoided me until I found him waiting beside my car one evening. He held a padded envelope. Danny wants me to sign an occupancy statement for the lender, he said. I froze that application. He's talking to another lender. My skin went cold. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. The statement says the business has exclusive use of the garage under a long-term agreement. We don't. No. It also says Glass House will own the property before funding. What did you tell him? That I needed to see the operating agreement. He handed me the envelope. Inside were printed emails between Daniel and Evelyn, copied from the company account Marcus jointly administered. One line had been highlighted. Once it's in the LLC, Lena can't block the loan or hold the house over us. Below it, Evelyn had replied, Good. She'll be angry, but she likes the house too much to let the marriage fail. I read the words twice. Why are you giving me this? Marcus looked toward the garage, where Daniel's silhouette moved behind the frosted window. Because he asked me to lie, he said, and because I finally figured out you weren't the one sinking the shop. He started away, then turned back. For what it's worth, Bellevue passed on us yesterday. Our debt ratio was too high. Daniel had not told me. Inside, his brass key was absent from the green bowl. A new lock gleamed on the garage door. On the dining table, beside Paula's letter, lay an appraisal request from Daniel's attorney. He was going to put a price on every room I refused to surrender. The appraiser came on a Wednesday morning carrying a laser measure much like the contractor Evelyn had hired. Daniel followed him from room to room, pointing out crown molding, built-in shelves, and the upstairs bathroom he had retiled after 3 tiles cracked under the old vanity. I followed with a folder of receipts. In the kitchen, Daniel ran his hand along the butcher block island. "I built this." "He did," I said. The appraiser looked relieved that we agreed on one thing. Daniel had built the island during our 2nd year of marriage. For 3 weeks, we had eaten takeout over a plywood workbench while he sanded maple late into the night. When he installed it, he cooked pancakes to celebrate and burned the first batch because we were dancing to the radio. The memory remained good. That was one of the crueler discoveries of divorce. The past did not rot on command. The appraisal came back at $488,000. I had bought the house for $312,000. The market accounted for much of the increase, according to Paula, but Daniel's attorney claimed nearly every improvement had added value and that his labor should be compensated at commercial rates. "They're asking for $116,000, Paula told me. I laughed so sharply the receptionist glanced through the open door. "They're not going to get that," Paula said, "but they're not going to get nothing." On her desk lay 3 columns of numbers: mortgage principal paid during the marriage, documented material costs, and estimates for Daniel's labor. Against those were the $25,000 he had transferred, the value of the equipment purchased with joint funds, and his half interest in a business that owed more than it owned. "Marcus is dissolving the partnership," I said. "That may reduce the business value further. It may also make Daniel more determined to extract cash from the house. So I'm rewarded for financing a failing business by financing him again when he leaves." "You're not being rewarded." "I know." Paula turned the worksheet toward me. "A refinance large enough to offer him $60,000 to $70,000 would settle this if he's rational. He tried to give his mother control of my house. Then let's not base our strategy on rationality. I had been pre-approved for enough to refinance the existing mortgage and fund a settlement, though the new payment made my throat tighten each time I looked at it. I could afford it if I delayed the bathroom repair, stopped replacing things before they failed, and abandoned the comfortable fiction that Daniel's business would someday repay the years I had carried it. Paula slid a second document toward me. It was a comparative market analysis, prepared in case I chose to sell. I touched the edge, but did not pick it up. "If I sell," I said, "what happens?" "The mortgage is paid. Selling costs come out. His proven marital share is resolved. You divide the remaining marital property, and you leave with the separate equity." "And he loses the garage." "Yes." "I lose the house." "Yes." There was no peppermint on earth strong enough for that answer. At home, I found Evelyn in the driveway loading unopened boxes into Daniel's van. The labels showed lamps, towels, cabinet pulls, and a compact microwave. "For the apartment?" I asked. She shut the van door. "They're returnable." Daniel had allowed her into the house again, but she stayed outside now. Paula's notice had done what my request could not. "Marcus told me Bellevue passed," I said. Her chin lifted. "Marcus has always been too timid for growth." He refused to sign a false occupancy statement. It wasn't false. The business occupies the garage, not under a long-term agreement. She brushed something invisible from her sleeve. "Daniel should never have involved him. Daniel should never have involved you." That reached her. She turned toward me slowly. "My son came to me because he could not come to his wife." "He came to you because you said yes. He came to me because every conversation with you ends in a ledger." I thought of the spreadsheets in the dining room, the receipts in Paula's office, the numbers now determining whether I kept my home. "You told him I liked the house too much to let the marriage fail." Her face went still. "Marcus gave me the emails. He had no right." "Did you believe that?" "I believed you loved Daniel." "I did." "Then why are you doing this?" I looked at the boxes in the van. She had bought cabinet pulls for rooms that didn't exist and a microwave for a wall no one had built. In her way, she had already moved in, because loving him didn't make page 4 disappear. He was desperate. He was counting on me being more desperate. Evelyn gripped the van handle. "Do you know what happens to him if you take the shop away?" "He rents one." "With what money?" "The same money he expected me to turn my house into." Her mouth trembled. She covered it by pressing her lips together. "You will always have options," she said. "Daniel has never had that kind of security. He had a home, a free workshop, my salary, my credit, and a wife who would have helped him if he'd told the truth. You made him feel like a guest. I gave him a key. You reminded him where it came from. That accusation stayed with me after she drove away. I examined it honestly. I had corrected Daniel when he called the house ours in arguments. I had kept the mortgage in my name, the closing file in my office, the old purchase photograph on the mantel. When he wanted to replace the front windows, I had insisted on choosing them because I was afraid he would spend too much. When he proposed expanding the garage, I had asked for costs before I asked what he imagined building there. Maybe he had felt temporary, but instead of telling me, he had drafted permanence for himself by removing mine. Daniel came inside after midnight. I was awake at the kitchen table with Paula's market analysis. He saw the logo at the top. "What's that?" "What the house could sell for." His face emptied. "You're not selling." "I might." "You told me you weren't leaving." "I'm not giving you the house. There's a difference." He dropped into the chair opposite me. His hands were stained dark around the nails from walnut dust. "You love this place." "Yes." "You spent 10 years paying for it." "Yes." "Then why would you sell?" "Because if the only way to keep it is to give you more than your claim is worth, I'll let the market decide what everything costs. You'd burn down your own life to make a point. No, I'd sell a house." We both knew that was not all it was, but saying it plainly changed the room. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling. "Mom said you'd never do it." "I know." "Of course you do." "She also said you told her I couldn't block the loan once the property was inside the LLC." His eyes came down to mine. "I was angry when I wrote that." "You wrote it before lunch." "I was angry before lunch." "At what?" He looked toward the hallway where the green bowl caught the light from the stove. "At always needing permission," he said. "For my house?" "For everything. The garage, wiring, buying lumber, whether Mom could stay for dinner, whether I could put a shelf in the laundry room without submitting a proposal." "You put 6 shelves in the laundry room. That's not the point." "What is?" "The point is that I live inside decisions you already made." I wanted to dismiss it. Some of it was unfair. Some of it was true. "You could have said that." "You would have made a list." "Maybe." He laughed once and I did too. It was the first shared laugh since the diner, weak and brief and painful enough to make me look away. Then I asked, "Why, Evelyn?" She could qualify. She believed in the hotel job. "Why 51%? "Because she wouldn't do it without control." "And you agreed." "I thought once the business stabilized, we'd change it." "Did she?" He said nothing. "You chose deceiving me because disappointing her felt harder." Daniel pressed the heels of his hands to his eyes. "Yes," he said. The words sat between us without excuse or decoration. At mediation, Daniel asked for $90,000 and 6 months of free garage use. His attorney called it a practical compromise. Paula responded with $58,000, 30 days in the house, 45 for the equipment, and a complete release of any claim against the property. The mediator carried offers between 2 conference rooms for 4 hours while we ate dry turkey sandwiches from a plastic tray. Daniel lowered his demand to 82s. We raised ours to 62 after receiving invoices that verified additional materials. He wanted the $25,000 transfer treated as ordinary business spending. Paula treated it as an advance against his side of the marital assets. By late afternoon, the mediator sat across from me and folded her hands. "He believes you won't sell." I pushed the market analysis across the table. "I authorized Paula to offer the house for sale if we don't settle." The mediator studied my face. "Are you prepared to follow through?" My stomach tightened so hard I felt it beneath my ribs. "Yes." She carried the paper away. 20 minutes later, Daniel entered our conference room alone. His attorney remained across the hall. He looked exhausted. His tie was folded into his pocket, the end hanging out like a white flag no one had intended. 68, he said. "I keep the van, my tools, and the equipment assigned to me in the partnership dissolution. You don't claim rent for the garage. I'm out of the house in 30 days and the shop in 45. Paula waited for me. "The 25,000? I asked. "Counted in the business assets I keep. The settlement worksheet reflects it. And every claim to the house is released. Yes. No LLC, no lender application, no occupancy agreement. Yes." I looked at Paula. She nodded once. Daniel sat down across from me. "Mom can't finance another shop. Marcus wants cash for his part. I'll have to sell one of the larger machines and rent a smaller place." I did not tell him I was sorry. I was, but the apology did not belong to me. "Why did you come in here?" I asked. "Because I wanted to see if you meant it." "Selling?" He nodded. "I did." He rubbed his wedding ring with his thumb. "I finally believed you." We signed after sunset. The refinance closed 3 weeks later. The number on the new payment looked no friendlier, but it belonged to a decision I had made with every page visible. Daniel packed in stages. First clothes, then books, then the kitchen knives he said had been a gift from Evelyn. She came once to help him box the garage office. She did not enter the house. The apartment fixtures disappeared from the van, returned or sold before their deadlines expired. Marcus bought out 2 smaller machines and started taking installation jobs alone. Daniel rented a narrow workshop behind an auto glass store. The Bellevue Hotel hired a larger company. Mercer and Blythe vanished from the van door under a rectangle of mismatched white paint. On his final morning, Daniel carried 2 suitcases to the van, the same number he had brought years before. He stood inside the front door with his brass key in his palm. "I could mail it," he said. "You're here." He dropped it into the green bowl. It struck Evelyn's old spare with a bright double note. "I did love living here," he said. "I know." He looked as if he wanted that to be enough for something. Then he nodded and walked out. After the van turned the corner, I took Evelyn's spare and Daniel's key to the locksmith. I changed the alarm code when I came home. The upstairs bathroom still leaned toward the tub. The island still held a pale scar from the night we opened wine without finding the corkscrew. I left both alone. A month later, I made the first refinance payment from my personal account. Rain tapped the front windows and the furnace came on with the low rattle I'd been postponing. I locked the door, crossed the dim hallway, and dropped my brass key into the green glass bowl. It was the only key there.